Trying to start everything I do with a big deep breath. All right, we are live. This will be for this is our fourth Zenspiration talk. I'm super excited for this one. I know it's going to be full of just good vibes, wisdom, inspiration. So let me put out the invite. Hi, Tracey.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. This whole process is always so I'm like, okay, I gotta look for the live icon and wait, is it on her IG page? Will it just appear to me? Like, even this process is a process of trust.
So funny. Oh my God. No, this is this is my fourth Inspiration IG Live, and I'm starting to get it down, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's all of the things. All of the
yeah.
things.
Yes. Oh man, yeah. The first few times I did them, I was just like, oh shoot, I have to all the things.
Yeah. Well, and you do these once a month, right?
So I've been doing them once a week.
Once a week. Okay.
Yeah, and we have another one next week, and then I'm gonna take a break.
Okay.
Yeah, because the week to week is a lot, but it's also been really amazing. So I think I'll reset a schedule after that.
Okay. Cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I this is that's a lot to do it once a week. So kudos to you.
It's so my style to be like, I'm gonna do this. It's gonna be once a week. It's gonna be great. And then
Right?
after I start, I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Once again, I've taken on too much. Let me adjust. But no, I've really enjoyed all the ones that I've done so far.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell. So that's good. That's what matters. And then
Yeah.
eventually the anxiety around it just goes away because you like it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm seeing some people are joining. Thanks for joining. Let's see. If you join, you can drop in something you've done for your self-care this week. Something simple. I'm trying to think what I've done. I basically stopped work at 4 today, which was earlier for me. So that felt nice.
That's good. Um something I did for self-care today. I went to the gym.
Yay!
It's so funny because for so long, like years, I've been trying to get into some kind of meditation, workout, journaling routine. And while I am a disciplined person, when it comes to routine, I'm not so good at it. So I've been, learning how to be gentle with myself and just accepting the fact that routines may not be good for me. And just allowing my energy to ebb and flow. But I will say that I've just recently gotten into a workout routine that feels really good. And so I actually look forward to going to the
Yes.
gym. So yeah, so I think my self-care today was getting my butt up and working out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's your routine that works for you?
Well, I think for me, what's helpful is when I can get up at the same time every day and go to bed around the same time every day. The bed part, that's not necessarily consistent, but I am waking up around the same time. And so that allows me to spend at least 10 minutes just focused on breath, before I even do anything, before I get out of the bed, anything. And then if I can journal, I will either use my Zenit Journal or no, I think I've actually been using my Zenit Journal more so because of the writing prompts. So that's really helpful. And then I can jump out and go to the gym.
Nice.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great routine. Having all that time, away from work in the morning.
Well, and I'm very intentional about that because, we're in the business of helping and healing and supporting. And so for me, it becomes like I am adamant about my time, actually, and being able to have that time first thing in the morning for myself, it really does just set my entire day. So yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I kind of got away from my morning routine, but I've like figured out some, like, for me taking breaks, like regular breaks in the afternoon to like work out or just
Yeah.
like rest or something. Like that's been helpful. But it's true, you know, that's interesting what you said. Like routine, we typically think like, yes, routine is like correct and necessary for everyone, but it's, you know, some people are more routine based in routines, and some people
Yeah.
um, it doesn't work. So it is a good point that like
Yeah.
it's up to each of us to kind of figure it out, and there's no
Yeah.
pressure to be like super strict with
Oh my
routine.
God, the pressure is stupid. And to be quite honest, I still struggle with that of like telling myself, okay, you didn't get to these things today because you didn't have the energy to. And that's okay. They'll get done. I don't need to like force myself into some kind of specific routine. Otherwise, you know, I don't know, my energy just, I'm not present. So I'm still kind of unlearning this, you know, conditioned belief that we need to have routine and discipline and be consistent. I mean, consistency, all of those things are important, yes, but there are variations of what that looks like. And it's up to each of us to figure out what that is and be okay with whatever our process is. So,
Yeah. Wow, we like went right into it. For those of you joining, thanks for
that's
joining.
What we always do
Yeah,
we meet up.
I know. Yeah, so we're just kind of sharing one thing, you know, like to kick us off, one thing we've done for our self-care. So if you want to share in the comments something you've done, we can celebrate you. And what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, like I found that I like, in terms of routine, just my last point on this. I like to have like, this is the routine kind of that I want for my week, like work out these days, it's my morning routine, and kind of have that like as a framework, but then not be so attached to it. Like I've learned how to be like, well, how do I, like you said, what's my energy? How do I feel today? And if I'm going to not stick to this, then like, that's okay. You know, I'll pick it back up in a day or two. It's not going to throw me off. Like, let's just, you know, really be true to what I need and what serves me today, like in this moment.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that point. You know, I kind of give this advice to folks, but it's also something that I follow myself, is like, you can create structure, but there should be flexibility in it, right? So it's like the difference between saying I'm going to work out 5 days a week versus 5 hours a week, right? Then you can plug in those hours whenever. You're limited when you have to be that 5-day, right? Because they're only 7 days. So that's a trick that I try to use as well. It's just like creating flexibility in that structure.
I like that way of thinking about it. 5 days, 5 hours. Well, I guess I'll like formally kick off the Zenspiration talk. This is our 4th Zenspiration talk, and it's all about, you know, elevating like folks in our Zenit community and recognizing that, you know, we all have wisdom to share from our personal journeys and healing and wellness. So I had been wanting to do for a long time where we could actually, you know, have conversations with folks in the community. And I'm so excited to have you on, Tracey. Tracey is like a role model to me. We met before the pandemic.
A little over a year ago, like about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, and like I left our first conversation like so inspired, and just the way, like, just, I don't know, talking to you, and kind of, we were each talking about like our experiences, you know, like as business owners, you know, like you are an astrologist, a life coach, you create these beautiful like astrology books for babies, and you know, I had really just started Zenit at the time, and I was just like really in a lot of angst about like, is this going to work out? And it was just like a really, I don't know, I left that conversation like we'll get to more of it, but like this idea of trust. But yeah, Tracey, let me hand it over to you, and please introduce yourself in a way that is natural to you.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I have to say that it's also true for me that you're very much a role model. I love your journals. I love the intention behind anything that you do. And I am also a big, I don't want to use the word fan, but I'm kind of a fangirl. And I think that, just what we've experienced from each other for as long as we've known each other, I think it's been a mutual sharing of wisdom and insight and advice and counsel. So, and I'm always the first to say, it's hard to find your people, like someone that you can connect with, someone where you have shared experiences. I treasure that, especially, just as I get older and knowing how hard that can be. And so I'm equally grateful for you and just that you exist.
Oh, thank you.
That you exist and I got to meet you. So thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And, like you said, I'm an astrologer, I'm a coach, I'm an activist, I'm a human, and just trying to do the best I can, like everybody else. So.
Yes. How do you think about that? Kind of like day to day, we've talked about like, routines, like flexibility, the structure. You do this work that is so focused on helping others, so how do you support your own wellness and sustain yourself in this work?
Yeah. Well, for me, that's something that has evolved. And I think for starters, what inspires me to prioritize self nurture and love and care when it comes to my line of work is that I can't be helping others and not helping myself. I would be a sucky coach and a sucky astrologer and a sucky activist if I'm like trying to be of service to other people and neglecting myself in the process. So that really is a motivating factor. It's like I can't be present with the people I get to connect with if I'm not being present with myself. So that interestingly makes it easy, and it gets easier the longer I'm in my field. It wasn't always this way. And I think it's the same for most helpers in that we're not even thinking about the energy and the time and the, emotional laboring that comes with being a helper, being a healer, because our intention really is just to help. And I think there's a fine line between playing this martyr role, right?
Yeah.
Versus recognizing that I can't be of use to other people if I'm not simultaneously filling my own well. And so this has just been, a really intentional practice for me that's just kind of grown over the years. It's not perfect. I wish I did have more routines, but it serves a purpose in a way that I feel comfortable right now. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. One thing that with Zenit, being about radical wellness, it's like this idea that, we're not going to just grind ourselves, grind to the bottom and then go on vacation and restore ourselves, how can we restore ourselves on a really regular daily basis? So I'm curious, how you practices, tricks that you do that help you kind of check in with yourself to, make sure you're getting that regular restoration.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love the phrase radical wellness. It's unfortunate that centering wellness is such a radical concept.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we live in a society that wants us to grind and hustle and conditions us to do just that. that when it comes to centering joy, it comes with a cap or a condition, you know? And so that's unfortunate, and that's the reality that we live in. And so as far as tools, like specific tools, interestingly, and I think this is attributed to my moon in the sign of Aries, which moon in astrology represents like your nurturing self, your emotional needs, and Aries is like this feisty warrior-like kind of energy. Physical activities actually really does a lot for me. So when I do get to work out, whether I'm weightlifting, whether I'm running, that's definitely a tool that's been in my toolkit for a really long time. And only now am I starting to really understand how necessary a part of my routine that is. So physical fitness is definitely, and I don't mean like, you know, healthy eating and stuff like that. I don't mean that stuff, right? Although I try, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like actually working out and moving my body. That's definitely a part of my kit. I also have a therapist that I see regularly as well. And it's funny because I remember when I first started therapy, this was maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I remember, you know, she asked me, why was I there? And my response was that I wanted to identify better coping mechanisms. Like in life, there will always be lows. And I wanted to know how I could deal with those lows so that they wouldn't feel so low, you know? And so that's definitely been in my toolkit as well, just when it comes to self-preservation and tools to, you know, keep me present and energized. Writing, definitely. And I do a lot of different writing. I write horoscopes. I do freelance writing. I write in my journal. I write written astrology reports. I write baby books. And so writing is definitely an outlet, I think, for a couple of reasons. For starters, especially from an astrological lens, it means that I get to connect with the stars. So I'm literally, you know, like doing this divination practice of looking at planets and interpreting how they're impacting us. So that's fun. But then also it puts me in a zone, you know, and so whether I'm journaling or if I'm, you know, writing horoscopes, my ego brain, my monkey brain is silent. And that is just such a powerful, tool for me as well, just when it comes to mental wellness and clarity and being able to download new insights. So those are my main go-tos. Meditation is something that I do off and on, but what I'm starting to realize is that for me, it's not so much meditation that's important to me as much as it's breath work. And so being able to like take those 10 minutes in the morning before I do anything just to focus on breathing, I think that is also a really helpful grounding tool as well. So those are my main go-tos. I definitely do some rituals, which those are fun. Mainly connected to the moon. So I do my moon salutations and ritual as well. But yeah, those are the main tools that I have and practices when it comes to wellness.
I love it. Yeah. Thanks for sharing those. And like on writing, you have, I think a couple Zenit journals, like customized ones, as well as our BIPOC journal for healing. So would love to hear how you thought about customizing your customized Zenit journals, because I think it's like often exciting for people to get to customize it, but I know sometimes it can take time, you know, go back and forth. So kind of would love to hear the intent behind how you designed yours.
Yeah. Well, our meeting was definitely fortuitous, I believe. We were at a cafe in Arlington, Virginia. I think it was like in January of last year when we met. And I was getting ready to make a big move. I moved back to Philadelphia, which is where I'm from originally. And nervous for all of the reasons. You know, I lived in the DC area for like 16 years. So I was leaving behind everything and everyone that I knew. I was moving my business with me, a business that I had spent up to that point, you know, 7 years creating and building. So I didn't know what that would look like. Of course, this was before we even knew anything about COVID.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just anticipated that I was going to need something to help me with the transition. And that's why I say our meeting was fortuitous, because we had a mutual friend that put us in contact, and I don't think she necessarily went into detail about what you did or what your business was.
She's like, you are a nice piece.
Yeah,
you are
like,
nice people. Just me.
Stuff in common. That's what she said. I think you may like each other. And so when we met and you told me about Zenit Journals, I was just like, whoa, this is so cool. I'd never heard anything like it. And I loved it. I loved the concept. I loved the idea. But most importantly, I really appreciate the fact that there was such a strong emphasis and intention around creating a private space for mental health and wellness, especially with the writing prompts. And so as you shared more with me about your work, I knew that I needed a journal. And I was very clear on that, actually. And that's why, I went through one like that.
Yeah.
Buying another one. And so that was a pretty clear decision for me, and an investment for me, knowing that I was, on the precipice of a lot of change and transition. Customizing my journal, interestingly, was a little overwhelming, and not because of anything on Zenit's part, but because sometimes you think you know too much about yourself for your own damn good. And so I was like, I want all of these prompts. And then I was like, I don't need all of these prompts. Don't get ahead of yourself, Tracey.
Yeah.
Like, think of what it is that you actually need going into this. And so I think I was just really excited, like giddy, about all of the different prompts that were available to me. And that made it a little overwhelming, but in such a good way, like I really felt like I was getting a quality made and intentionally designed addition to my Soul's Toolkit. And so that just made me that much more excited to make such an investment. And it also forced me to connect with myself and really ask myself, what am I going to need from this journal, choosing the prompts and everything. So that in and of itself was a journaling exercise, a prompt, right? Of having to ask your questions, why you're going to need these prompts, And so choosing the prompts was an amazing endeavor. I think the design I chose was actually a newer design that you had just put out, and I liked it so much. Some of the symbolism, or at least the symbols in it, for whatever reason, kind of resonated with me. And so that made it easy to pick the design. And then my quote about being, my ancestors' wildest dream, that's something that was sticking with me and had been sticking with me for a long time. So I just kind of knew that was something, that was a message I needed to include. So that was my experience. And like I said, the first journal I went through real fast. I had to order a second one. And that too has just been such a wonderful addition as needed. So
I really appreciate you just saying, yeah, it was overwhelming. There was a lot, to go through. But also that the process itself, and this is what I want, the process itself, already kind of gets you in that self-reflection. Because my hope is that it feels like an empowering act to be like, oh yeah, this prompt is going to help me. This prompt speaks to me.
Right.
And I actually I discourage people from just clicking all of them, because I mean, if you have a journal with all the prompts, that's going to be fine. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
But it can be a really empowering act to go through, take your time, and be thoughtful about what you choose.
Yeah, I think that, and that again speaks to just the intentionality behind it that I genuinely appreciate. And so I knew that it was exactly what I needed.
Was there, has there been a certain prompt that you have found to really like resonate with you or help you out in certain ways?
So there are a few. For starters, and well, I was gonna say, I don't know why this prompt sat with me so much, but it did. I love the initial prompt that I chose of how are you feeling today, right? And I think you could even choose like the different smiley faces. Like, am I smiley? Am I, you know what I mean? That was such an important prompt for me, especially during COVID, because each day that went by during COVID, we didn't know what to expect. And in many ways, it was very sad. It was very depressing. I kept saying how, it felt like Groundhog Day over and over again. I noticed how my mood really fluctuated, interestingly, with seasons and weather throughout the pandemic. So, like, when it was a rainy day, I wasn't in the best of moods. And I think last year was the first year that I really observed how connected I am to weather when it comes to my own feelings and how I move through my day. And so that prompt, it really was helpful because I had to acknowledge my moods and I had to pay attention. This is how I'm feeling right now. And then I had to go through the process of writing about why. So that probably was the most important prompt in my journal, especially throughout last year. And then I also really appreciated the prompt of like, what small victories did I have? Because so this is how I used my journal. I actually used it twice a day. So I would write in it first thing in the morning, and then I would save the remaining prompts that I had for at night. So it's just intentional, right? And so I love that at the end of the day, writing down little victories that I was able to have throughout the day, especially during the time of COVID, right? And so that prompt was also really helpful. And then I also choose the gratitude prompt. What are some things that you're grateful for? And that too was extremely important throughout COVID. And just literally daily having to identify, this is what I'm grateful for, this is what I'm happy that I have, and stuff like that. So I think those are the most important prompts that have really resonated with me.
That's really cool to hear about your practice, like the morning and the night. It's kind of our flow in that way.
Yeah.
I can go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, that those journals were such an anchor for me. And while I anticipated that I was going to need them for the transition, I didn't know how much I would need them with COVID. So it was really like it was like this thing that I could go to that I always knew would be there and be consistent because I knew what prompts to anticipate. And that was, I mean, it was a needed tool for me for sure last year.
Oh, I'm like in my feelings right now. I feel very validated, and I'm really happy. I'm just like happy that it was useful to, like at the end of the day, whatever, I put it out, I want it to be of value. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Of course.
I don't know if you had some people in the talks have a passage they want to read. There's no pressure if whether you do or don't, but just
you did send me that. I don't.
Okay. I just want to offer that.
I didn't even think of. I'm looking at my journal right now. Honestly, the passage that comes to mind, and I think I shared this one with you, and we haven't talked about the BIPOC Journal. Woo, girl. Yeah. So, again, this is what I mean when I say that I'm so glad you exist, because creating those journals wasn't such a journey. Yes. And I didn't even, let me grab mine here. Everything is fine. Here's mine. I didn't even, and it's funny because I feel like this is my experience with all of the journals that I've either bought from you or helped create, right? I didn't realize that these journals were going to have the impact on me that they had. Even going into it, I anticipated some stuff, but they still showed up for me in a way that I never would have considered on my own, right? And so And so with the BIPOC Journal, I think I shared with you before about how we did such a good job. And so much so that I was very intimidated by this. It made me realize how I think in my work, just through my activism, I have to be very conscientious of that fine line between intentional healing and the disregard for healing because it gives me something to fight about. You know what I mean? Like I can hold on to my anger and my rage, and that is very much fuel for my activism. And so if I allow myself to heal, I'm going to lose that, right? And
that's deep. I'm just like, pause. Like, that is really deep. Ooh, yes. Wow.
And so that's why this journal has been intense in such a really important, good way. But it really helped me to see how like anger fuels my activism, and that's fine. But I cannot attach myself to it. I have to let myself heal. And so one passage that comes up, and I think I shared this with you, is that we are shaped by our struggles. Even the struggles of our ancestors tell our story. And just how and when I wrote that, it was primarily because I realized just how attached we are to our struggles. And this is for any of us, right? Like this is something that's common across the board, is that we are attached to our struggles. But I think for historically underserved communities, that story goes deep, and it really is just interwoven into our DNA. And so we can't help but be attached to it. And what that looks like when it comes to telling a new story, and what that looks like, you know, especially when we talk about intergenerational healing and how that starts with me, right? And so all of this came up for me in this journal, and that resistance to healing. It was just such a really like it was a very powerful thing that I had no idea was a thing. So yeah.
That's really deep. Wow, yeah, it's making me think of like this came up in just this past Sunday's journaling mini retreat, which it was on like embracing the journey. Kind of, and I realized like in my personal, like the first 2 years, you know, as I was starting Zenit, like I was really, you know, I was coming out of like toxic relationships. I was dealing with the trauma, healing from it, depression, anxiety. And I wrote about how like, you know, I really have come a ways, and, you know, I don't wake up feeling like a failure every morning anymore, you know, like it's really noticeable. But I was like, wait, like, what does that mean? Like, am I going to be able to like, you know, be there for other people if I can't like feel the pain on a day-to-day basis? And I had to just be like, well, I don't want to be in pain every day. So it's just a new opportunity, like new way to still connect and still by that, you know, be there for others, but it doesn't, it's like, it's time for me to do it a different way.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, one of an exercise that I do with a lot of my coaching clients is, you know, how we address fear, right? And difficult emotions. And how, you know, we're taught to just get over it, right? Or man up or push through. And that is such harmful messaging. You know, the fact of the matter is any kind of difficult feelings or fears that we have, they were ingrained in us, most likely in childhood. Like there's an underlying root that stems from our upbringing. And so one of the things that I usually invite folks to do is to identify how those fears have served them, right? And then acknowledge, well, this fear of not being good enough is what makes me work hard, right? Thank you, fear. But I choose to work hard from a place of excitement and passion and love, and not this fear that I'm not good enough, right? And then literally just changing that message and giving yourself permission to say, okay, not good enough. I acknowledge you. I know why you're here, but I choose to move through this process from a place of love and deep honor and respect, right? So yeah, I mean, it even with my activism, like I can totally do activism from a place of peace.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
Or from a place of, dare I say it, love. But it doesn't have to come from anger or rage. And honestly, like this is like you were saying with your experience, this is a foreign concept for me. And so having to like, shift and do this work from a different place, it's new, right? And it'll look different, it'll feel different, but it doesn't make it any less important. So yeah, girl.
And it doesn't make it any less impactful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Oh man, that is like something I'm gonna write down. Yeah. I'm gonna write
Yes.
it down and think about it.
Yeah.
On the BIPOC journal, my last like kind of question is we have a couple quotes from it. So for those of you who don't know, like Tracey is one of the co-collaborators of this beautiful BIPOC journal for healing and liberation, as well as our journal for aspiring white anti-racists. So you have a quote in one of our, like we have pages with different quotes. So one is, to my ancestors who fought and died for me to live this life, may I make you proud and be a beacon of light. Um, so beautiful. I'm curious if there's like a story behind that, or because you have a few quotes on ancestry. Your affirmation in your customized Zenit journal is, may I be my ancestors' wildest dreams. So there's this like, clear like connection with your ancestors.
Yeah.
About like there's, kind of what's behind that.
Yeah. So that was interestingly, that was speaking of journals, it's up here somewhere, but I won't grab it. Otherwise more things will fall. But that was something that came to me while in ritual. This was a few years ago. I was doing some kind of ancestral ritual. And those words came to me. And I find that when I'm in ritual, that is one source that inspires some of the affirmations that I'm able to come up with. Probably another really important inspiration are the people that I work with, my clients, especially. I don't even like calling them clients because, I get as much from them, hopefully, and they get similarly equal exchange of energy. And so those are the main sources that inspire some of the affirmations. But that particular one came from a ritual, an ancestral ritual that I was doing. And, it's funny. I am pretty, well, I try to maintain a healthy connection and direct line to my ancestors. And this is something that has just kind of grown and evolved through my activism, and having to know more about the story of the stories of folks who were enslaved, and letting that also be a fuel for my activism. Sometimes I will just reflect on what enslaved people endured, and every time I'm just shocked for obvious reasons, but not so much at just the horrors, but how they were just so resilient throughout all of it. And that makes me really proud. And it's funny because I remember, I was having a discussion, well, it was really an argument with this woman who was white. She was a dear friend of mine. And I remember her telling me that I should be grateful for the privileges that I have because of, this country and what it stands for. And I remember telling her that I have the privileges I have in spite of it. and that my ancestors are the reason why I'm here at all having this conversation with you. Because if white supremacy had its way, I wouldn't be here. And so there's just a strong reverence and appreciation and just devout loyalty and love that I have to the people that came before me, who are the reason why I'm here today. So that's really the story behind that particular affirmation.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And so, like, I guess you mentioned activism from love. I can imagine, like, love for your ancestors.
Yes,
a huge part of that.
Yeah, that's helpful. Because I think for me, thank you for sharing that. Because I think for me, when it comes to what that source of love might be, it would be my ancestors. So yeah. Because I often, I say to myself, it's like, especially when it comes to activism, yes, I have to carry this torch, right? I mean, it's only fair for my future generation. I mean, it's absolutely necessary considering the world that we live in. But I also know my ancestors wanted me to be free and to thrive and to prosper and to experience a life well lived. And so, when it comes to liberation, like, I'm all for it on all levels, right? Liberation of my mind and liberation to live where I want to live and love who I want to love. Like, all of that is a part of that liberation journey for me. And so yeah, I think the source of love would definitely involve the love I have for my ancestors.
I feel like we could continue talking about this for an hour, but I'd like want to be respectful of your time. It's been like 40 minutes, and I'm just so grateful for all that you've shared. It's been just like a joy to listen to you. As we wind down, are there any words of inspiration or encouragement you want to share to our listeners?
Well, first of all, be on the lookout for possible Zenit collaboration on astrology journals later on this year. That is a project that I have not forgotten. And I'm trying to get my practice in now so that I can further conceptualize what that will look like. So I'm really excited about that. And then I think the last thing I would have to say is buy a journal. Like, go to zenitjournals.com and buy a customized journal for yourself. Like I said, my experience with the journal that I customized was one that I thought I knew about, but never would have anticipated. And so I think that, we would all do ourselves such a solid, literally, given the times that we're living in right now, to invest in a sacred space where we can focus and center our mental health and wellness. So go buy a Zenit Journal.
Thank you, Tracey. And that's what I want. Like you, I love the way you put it. Sacred space for us to center our mental health and wellness.
Yeah.
And how can people stay in touch with you, follow you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Trae to you, TRAE, the number 2, the letter U. My website is my name, TraceyLRogers.com. And those are probably the main 2 places. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook if you're interested in going the extra mile with those socials. But IG is my home, and then my personal website.
And I will just add that I had the gift of doing a personal astrology reading with Tracey, and it was just the perfect time for me to do that. Like, in terms of moving me forward, helping me get unstuck in like things like around, self-acceptance. It was really powerful. So definitely look Tracey up, go to her website. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for this invitation. It was so good to see you and to chat with you. Our talks, we really could go on and on. So this is always a treat for me. So thank you.
Thank you, Tracey. To everyone out there, thank you for joining. I'm gonna post this on Zenit's IGTV series and on YouTube. And my website, and I'll share all of that with you as well, Tracey.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye.